Am I the a-hole? I instead spent the evening with his ex-wife. Quick backstory. After graduating high school, my son moved 3 states away for college. Then at 19, he married a girl he met. I tried convincing him to wait because I personally felt he was too immature. But they both dropped out and moved back here to his hometown. At 20, they had their first child, a beautiful little girl. 16 months later, my daughter-in-law gave birth to their second child, a little boy. After the first baby, my wife and I noticed our daughter-in-law wasn't happy. We both thought it was PPD related. Just after the second arrived, my son and his wife separated. She would bring the kids over for a visit. It was then she began unloading on us. I know there's 2 sides to every story, but considering I know my son, I believed her. I sat my son down numerous times to speak with him regarding his marriage, and he refused to take responsibility, blamed her for everything even when I directly pointed out where he was the sole problem. They got into counseling. For a year, things were okay on the surface, but eventually our daughter-in-law filed for divorce. My son 3 days later was on Facebook announcing his new girlfriend. A month later, they were engaged. My son had forced his then-wife to become a permanent stay-at-home mom at the birth of their first child. She, of course, had no other family or friends here, and she knew no one aside from us. She had nowhere to go with 2 small children, so unbeknownst to our son, my wife and I helped her financially and got her an apartment. Before the divorce was even finalized, we received a wedding invitation. I made it clear to my son that I would not be attending and they would not have my blessing. His mother told him she would see to it that I would attend, but I stayed consistent in my decision. I also asked him not to bring his fiancée around our house out of respect for the mother of his children. The wedding happened on February 11, and the night before, my wife gave me the final push. I still did not attend. Our daughter also did not attend for the same reasons. My wife picked up our grandkids, got them dressed, and attended the wedding, while my daughter and I decided to spend the evening with his ex. I couldn't imagine her sitting alone while her kids attended their father's wedding. She was taken aback that I didn't end up attending his wedding. We took her out to distract her mind. I just wanted her to know she'll always be considered family to us. My daughter also made a joke they can drop the in-law status and just be sisters now. She was very tearfully grateful, and I realized just how badly she needed our support, and specifically on that night. The next morning, my son called to tell me how much of a horrible father I am for not attending his wedding. Few days later, he caught wind that I spent the wedding evening with his ex, and that he said that was the ultimate form of betrayal. And further, myself and his sister would have to earn a relationship with him on his terms only. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Our daughter-in-law filed for divorce. My son 3 days later was on Facebook announcing his new girlfriend. A month later, they were engaged. Ew. The best children are the ones you choose. My ex posted about his new girlfriend on Facebook before I had the chance to file. But we separated because of his cheating. It's nice that he was fired soon after, and now the affair partner is financially supporting him. Not the a-hole. This is funny. You have to earn a relationship on his terms? I think he needs to check his offering. He's way overvaluing what he brings to the table. Honestly though, why would anyone care to earn a relationship with someone who clearly puts no value on the relationships he already had? He didn't care when Opie said from the get-go he wouldn't attend, because he just assumed he would get his way in the end. The only relationship this guy values is the relationship with that guy in the mirror. Opie, not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. It sounds like you're a reasonable parent who acknowledges when your kid is being an idiot. I don't see anything wrong with you choosing to support the mother of your grandchildren, who he seems to have left in a bad spot. Too many parents don't want to hold their children accountable. I'm glad this father does. My father was abusive, and his parents always sided with him and told me to just deal with it. Whenever he did something, they just swept it under the rug. They didn't want to believe their son could be such an a-hole, despite seeing him blow up themselves. So they would rather live in denial. Next story. Am I the a-hole for taking legal action against my sister-in-law for damage she did to my dad's property? My 24 female dad is pretty well off and owns multiple properties in both the country I live in as well as back in his home country. Because of this, and the fact that my husband and I both have good careers, my sister-in-law has always had a snobby attitude towards us and my side of the family, and tries to mooch off of us at any chance she gets. When we go out to eat with my husband's side of the family, we're expected to pay. Christmas and birthday, his side of the family expects good gifts, etc. His sister is currently on her third marriage and has 3 children, all under the age of 10. Her and her husband were looking for a place to host their wedding and approached me about using one of my dad's properties to host it. I was very hesitant at first to help her because of the treatment she has given me in the past, but it's my dad's property after all, so I contacted him to ask him about it. He said it's my call, but told me to 1. Have them sign some type of agreement stating that if any damage is done to the house, they are liable. 2. They are going to be charged a reasonable fee to use the house. We both agreed on the $1,500, which I believe is very reasonable considering this is a massive house. I told sister-in-law and her husband about this. They asked about a family discount, and I told them this was a family discount, and take it or leave it. They signed the agreement and paid. Fast forward 2 days after the wedding, I went over to the house. House is a complete mess. Bed sheets are stained, a vase destroyed, alcohol bottles floating in the pool, etc. I contact my dad to tell him. He tells me to assess the damage and see how much it is. It was around $1,000 worth of damage. My dad contacts my sister-in-law himself and explains to her the damage and what she owes him. She loses her mind and starts going off about how this is BS. We're family. She shouldn't even be charged in the first place. We're so well off we can happily afford to pay for the damages. If she gives him that money, they won't be able to afford to go on a honeymoon, etc., etc. She then calls me up to harass me and starts calling me a witch who thinks she's too good for everyone and says, it's a wedding, what do you expect? Sorry, my people know how to have a good time. My dad gives her 30 days to pay and she was notified about this. 30 days comes and no payment. So my dad got his lawyer to contact sister-in-law explaining how she's being taken to court for not paying. Her and my mother-in-law have been contacting my husband nonstop, trying to get him to get her the money. He refuses because he agrees that what she did was irresponsible and wrong. I had to block mother-in-law and sister-in-law after they sent me nasty messages and even try to show up at my house to talk to me. I feel bad that my husband's relationship with his mom and sister is going to be ruined over $1,000. But I feel like what she did was wrong and she wasn't even sorry about it. Edit. I should also add that my sister-in-law and her husband were given a key to the house to use it and lock it up when they were leaving it. The key was returned to me at my house. The next day I went over to the house, which is when I found the damage. So they left the house in the condition for me to see with no care in the world. Not the a-hole. Your sister-in-law fooled around and she found out. Good life lesson for her. Sucks for your husband, but it also shows him how little regard his family has for him. Yep, if sister-in-law had rented a public venue, would she expect them not to come after her if she left it in this condition? It makes it even worse that it was family. They were kind enough to let her use it at a heavily discounted rate, and she had so little respect for them that she left it trashed. She deserves everything she's getting right now. She'd probably expect OP's family to pay for damages to a different venue too. Not the a-hole. Honestly, this might be quite a blessing for your husband. His mother and sister are horrible people. They caused actual damages and have insulted you, your father and your husband, for simply asking them to be responsible for themselves. If they choose to step out of his life over this, so much the better. I'd like an update in the future. Not the a-hole. The thing I'm wondering is that the sister-in-law didn't even invite the OP or her dad to this wedding? That's rude in itself. Next story. Am I the a-hole for moving out and causing my engaged roommates to struggle with paying for the wedding? I, 32, female, have known Kara, 32, female, since 1995. In November 2021, she asked me to move in with her fiancé, male 30, and her brother, male 40. My apartment wanted to raise my rent, and they were saving for a wedding, so moving in would help each other out. I wasn't on a lease because the landlord would probably up the rent. I noticed after moving in that they'd spent their money on things they never really used. Purses, shoes, random fandom decor, and they would go out to eat a lot. Out-of-state vacations were every 2 to 3 months. I wasn't allowed to have people over. 3 months in, I wanted to bring over my boyfriend at a time and it caused a huge argument. After we broke up, she was adamant that no one else was allowed to come over. She would go in my room when I wasn't there. In June, she started to call it her room, that I was renting so she can do whatever she wants. I changed the lock on the door without telling her and closed the door just to see what would happen. I came home to the door being open and the frame being cracked because I must have accidentally locked myself out. In July, the water heater blew up and caused a flood. Within the next few days, everyone got sick. When I asked her to get it checked for mold, she refused. Luckily, she didn't have to pay anything because the landlord covered fixing the water heater. She was relieved that she could still go on her California vacation, but everyone in the house kept getting sick every couple of weeks. I purposely avoided the house so it didn't affect me quite as much as it used to when I was constantly there. In November 2022, I came home and found black mold literally growing on the bathroom ceiling in different spots. I confronted her about it multiple times and she said it's calcium buildup. In December, they finally picked out a wedding date and venue. His parents told them that instead of paying for the whole thing like they originally said they would only be paying for half because she wanted an elegant look. Her parents are both deceased, so it's up to the couple to pay for the other half. My friend started freaking out because they hadn't saved the entire year. In early January, my brother's divorce was finalized and he got a house. He asked me if I'd like to rent out a room as he'd rarely be home and is charging me next to nothing. It's honestly an offer I couldn't refuse. So I took them out to eat in public and told them I paid them for February's rent, even though I had my stuff moved out before the end of January. They were shocked and went silent until last week when I was flooded with texts. Apparently, I'm completely screwing them over. They said they're going to change the venue and she might have to return her $1,500 dress. They wanted me to know about how badly I screwed them over. She asked if I could spot her some money every now and then to help make up for my betrayal. But to be honest, I'm over this friendship. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Nope, not the a-hole. Clearly and unequivocally. It's not even just a money issue. It's a full and toxic environment issue. Literally and figuratively. God, they sound exhausting. There was nothing reasonable or justifiable about how they treated Opie. Like a clueless child versus a grown adult for Pete's sake. Glad she got the hell out of there. Not the a-hole. You should have moved out sooner. Yeah, that February rant was totally unnecessary in this context, because Kara's rude and selfish and controlling AF. Absolutely not the a-hole. There was mold in the apartment that your so-called friend was refusing to take care of. Plus, you weren't allowed to have guests and your privacy wasn't being respected. Moving out was a smart thing to do. It's clear that Kara only asked you to move in with her so she could use your rent to live a more comfortable lifestyle. Think about it. If they asked you to move in so they could save up for their wedding, why did they freak out when they learned his parents were only going to pay half the costs? After a year of having a roommate, they should have had a good portion of money saved up. You don't owe her anything. She should have been more a responsible adult and a much better friend. It would probably be best to end a friendship. Last story. Am I the a-hole for buying my girlfriend's sister a car? About 4 years ago, my girlfriend and her younger sister had a huge falling out. I don't know what about because my girlfriend never went into any specifics, and that was before I even met her, but they haven't spoken to each other since. I've been with my girlfriend for 2 years. About a year ago, her sister reached out to me because she wanted me to persuade my girlfriend into meeting with her because she wanted to reconnect. But when I told my girlfriend, she said she never wants to see her. 2 weeks ago, her sister messaged me again and asked me if she could borrow $2,000 from me because she needed to buy a new car, and she said she'd pay me back monthly. I told her that I can't just borrow her money because I don't know her, and I don't know if she's actually gonna use it to buy a car. But I told her that if she found a car for sale she wants, I can go and see it with her and pay for it. So a couple days ago, I met up with her, and I paid just over $2,000 for a car. This was the first that I actually met her in person. I told her she could just pay me back whenever. I honestly just felt a bit sorry for her. I could tell she genuinely wants to reconnect with my girlfriend, but she just refuses. Her sister also didn't tell me any specifics about their falling out, but that it had to do with my girlfriend's old boyfriend and how my girlfriend basically accused her of doing something she didn't do. I didn't press her for anything specific because I could tell she didn't want to talk about it. Afterwards, I told my girlfriend about it and she got furious at me. She said I shouldn't have bought her a car, and she claims I betrayed her trust by going behind her back. We argued about it for a while and, well, since then she barely speaks to me. But I honestly don't think I did anything wrong, especially since we don't share finances. So I spent my own money and not hers. So was I the a-hole? I don't know if ages are relevant here, but I'm 27, my girlfriend is 25, and her sister is 19. You're the a-hole. Boundaries, dude. You need a refresher. You, as a 27-year-old man, should not be going behind your girlfriend's back and contacting her estranged teen sister, let alone buying her a car. Creepy, inappropriate, and downright weird as hell. It is a huge red flag, and I would just dump such a boyfriend. Apparently, you learned that it had something to do with a boy, and you honestly ask if you are the a-hole? This just screams that OP is the kind of person to say family's family no matter what they've done to you. Her sister also didn't tell me any specifics about their falling out, but that it had to do with my girlfriend's old boyfriend and how my girlfriend basically accused her of doing something she didn't do. If this is your first time meeting her, how do you even know she didn't do whatever she's been accused of? Why would you believe the sister you've never met over your own partner? It is honestly a terrible idea to drop $2,000 for a stranger because they are vaguely pseudo-family, even before you get the technically legal teenager of your preferred gender or girlfriend's estranged sister. At that point, whether or not she did what girlfriend accused her of is an interesting but immaterial question. You're the a-hole, but can I have a car too? You know me just as well, and I really want one. I can provide a sob story too if that helps. I am also an estranged sibling of your girlfriend. I also need $2,000 for a car. DM me for details. Only if you answer 3 questions first.